Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a stack of sources, like always, and pulling out the really valuable stuff for you. And we're diving into, well, the pretty fascinating world of craft cannabis breeding. We've got this great profile here. Excerpts from Wy'east Farms, craft cannabis breeding profile, presented by Nugnotes. So our mission really is to unpack how Wy'east Farms managed to carve out this really distinct and respected spot. I mean, it's an incredibly competitive market out there, right?
Hmm.
Often turbulent. We're going to look at their unique approach, get into their foundational genetics, the bedrock, and ultimately try to understand why they've become such a go-to for, consistent top-quality cannabis. So get ready. We'll explore this mix of legacy, innovation, and a sort of low-key, high-impact thing they've got going on.
Yeah, and what's particularly compelling, I think, about Wy'east Farms is how they've built this entire brand. It's built around a concept of really intentional, almost you could say surgical breeding. And that's quite a contrast to some of the broader trends you see, right? Where, people rush to chase the latest fad or maybe just slap a new name on some older, sometimes unstable genetics. Standing out in a market that's so crowded, so fast moving, that's a huge challenge. And Wy'east's story is, well, it's a great case study in how focus, a clear vision, and just sticking to quality can really be the thing that sets you apart.
Okay, let's really unpack this then, starting right at the beginning. The genesis of Wy'east Farms. The story really kicks off back in 2019. That's when Just made this huge decision, right? Stepping away from compound genetics, which was, a pretty established name already. And he launched Wy'east Farms. The name itself, Wy'east, it's got history, comes from the native legend for Menthood in Oregon. So for Jeff, it clearly meant something, like a return to his own vision for breeding and kind of regrounding maybe, and wanting that complete creative freedom. And for you listening, this isn't just like a business move. It's a really powerful example of how taking back that creative control, even in a niche area, how that can unlock this focus, this authenticity that sometimes gets lost in bigger operations.
Absolutely. And if we zoom out a bit, connected to the bigger picture, that separation from compound genetics, it's significant. It really can't be overstated. It wasn't just changing the sign on the door. It allowed for this incredibly singular focused approach to breeding, free from maybe the compromises or the broader market pressures you get with a larger company. And that just highlights the huge value of creative autonomy. So especially in these craft fields where, precision, the artistic side, genetic integrity, it's all paramount. But it does raise a question, doesn't it? How does a breeder, even a really talented one, immediately stand out? How do you rebuild trust after a big split like that, going from an established brand to starting fresh? How do you keep that momentum? What were those immediate hurdles? And how did their early strategy help them get that grower trust back so quickly?
That is a fantastic question. And, based on our sources, it seems a huge part of rebuilding that identity and doing it fast came right from the genetic backbone they chose to build on. So let's dig into those genetic cornerstones of Wy'east. They basically built their whole foundation on just two specific, really stable genetic lines, what the industry calls cornerstone cuts, which are essentially, proven, unique phenotypes. They give you a consistent, predictable starting point for breeding. And for Wy'east, those pillars are Jet Fuel Gelato and the Menthol. These aren't just catchy names. They are literally the bedrock. They fuel so much of Wy'east Farms' later work, leading to some really popular hybrids, Horchata, Candy Chrome, Cold Snap. You've probably heard of them. And here's a little detail from the source, kind of interesting. Jet Fuel Gelato was actually bred by Crane City originally, and it got its name while Jeff was still at Compound Genetics, so there's a bit of continuity there, but now it's under his own very distinct Wy'east banner.
And what's really compelling there is the strategy behind it, committing to such a strong, identifiable genetic lineage. There's real power in that. By building around these pillar genetics, Wy'east isn't just, crossing fingers and hoping for good results. They're pretty much ensuring consistent quality. They're getting predictable outcomes in their crosses. And for craft production, where every little detail matters, that consistency is just critical. This whole approach, it's not just about making new strains. It feels like a deliberate strategy, almost a counter move against a market that's often flooded with unstable, maybe hype-driven genetics, stuff that looks good online but maybe doesn't perform in the actual grow room. So this commitment to known, reliable genetics, it builds serious trust with growers. It shows that genetic integrity can actually be a stronger selling point than just loud marketing.
Absolutely. And speaking of those foundational pillars, one cultivar in particular, Cold Snap, really stands out, seems like a real game changer for Wy'east. Our source calls Cold Snap a minty power pollinator. Now, for anyone maybe not familiar, a power pollinator in breeding, it's basically a male plant that consistently passes on really desirable traits, makes it an invaluable tool for creating new, better crosses. And Cold Snap is apparently leading Wy'east Farms' feminized wave, which is their focused push on developing seeds that reliably produce female flowering plants. That's a big deal for efficiency, a huge draw for cultivators. This specific cut, Cold Snap, it plays a crucial role in dialing in resin, frost, and hash wash performance.
Wow.
And it delivers those qualities with this distinct gassy candy backend. Let's break that down a bit. Hash wash performance. That's about how well the trichomes, those frosty little resin glands, separate from the plant when making ice water hash. Really critical for high-quality solventless concentrates, so Cold Snap's impact there makes it a real workhorse for them.
Oh, and an interesting side note from the source.
One of their big creations, apples and bananas. It was originally called Double Deja Vu, but then it got rebranded by Cookies, to add their signature flavor-forward twist. Toss related. It just shows how influential these core Wy'east genetics can become, even beyond their direct brand.
Yeah, if we widen the lens here, the strategic importance of a power pollinator like Cold Snap, it's huge. It's not just another strain they offer. It's like a fundamental genetic tool. It actively lifts up their entire genetic library, ensures consistency, helps them target specific traits they want across lots of new crosses. So Wy'east isn't just, tossing seeds against the wall hoping something good comes out. They're meticulously engineering their new stuff. And for you listening, it kind of brings up an important question, right? How does a breeder strategically choose which traits, like, say, resin production or a specific terpene profile to focus on, especially when aiming for high-value stuff like solventless hash? How do you enhance those for maximum market impact? Cold Snap is a perfect example of that deliberate, almost artisanal kind of choice.
Right. Now let's look at their initial impact, how they built that reputation so fast. Wy'east Farms had a seriously strong debut in 2019. Their first drops featured Fudge Ripple and Corpse Paint, kind of evocative names there. And our source says these early 10-pack feminized seed drops moved quickly through respected distributors like Neptune's Seed Bank and Oregon Elite.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a slow burn. It apparently got them an instant cult following, like right away. This early buzz led to what they now call their cult catalog, with key strains becoming the go-to picks for growers who really know their stuff. Think names like Candy Chrome, Zuyaki, Horchata, Marshmallow OG, and Fresh Powder. These really hit the mark, became super popular with what the source calls solventless producers and exotic flower chasers. Let's clarify that maybe. Solventless producers. Those are growers making concentrates without chemical solvents, right? Focusing on purity, natural expression. They need genetics with amazing hash wash performance, like we talked about. And exotic flower chasers. Well, they're the connoisseurs hunting for unique, top-shelf flower, visual appeal, distinct terps, potent effects. Wy'east clearly delivered for both groups, earning them serious cred fast.
It's actually remarkable, isn't it? How quickly Wy'east built up that dedicated cult following right out of the gate. That kind of rapid adoption, it speaks volumes about the quality and the distinctiveness of what they were offering from day one. It really shows how targeted drops, strategic distribution through the right channels, how that can create serious buzz and loyalty without needing a giant marketing budget. For Wy'east, that early success wasn't just about sales figures. It was critical validation, proof that Jeff's vision, that meticulous approach, was working. It set the stage for them to grow nationally, prove their focused quality-first strategy was hitting the right notes with those discerning growers and processors.
Okay, so moving beyond just the strains themselves, let's talk about their wider philosophy and their reach now. Wy'east Farms operates under this core principle they call clean crosses, no cap, which isn't just a cool slogan, right? It signals a deep commitment. Commitment to genetic purity, intentional breeding. It means all drops use single male pollination. Now, for anyone not deep into breeding, that's significant. It means using one single, carefully chosen male parent for a whole cross. This helps ensure genetic purity, predictable results, avoids mix-ups you might get with less control. Their philosophy is explicit. No hype breeding, just thoughtful crosses built for flavor, resin, and real-world cultivation. That says a lot about prioritizing authenticity, stuff that actually works, over just chasing trends. And while they're based near Portland, really embodying that Oregon engine craft spirit, their reach now is genuinely national. You find their genetics being grown all over California to Maine, and you see top-tier operators like Redbird, Elephant's Growth, and Echo Electuary. They're specifically choosing Wy'east genetics for what people consistently call elite batches, high-end stuff.
Right. And this clean cross is no cap commitment. It brings up another interesting question. How does a no-hype approach actually succeed? Especially in a market driven so often by trends, big marketing pushes, the need for novelty. Wy'east Farms really demonstrates the long-term value of being authentic, of focusing relentlessly on real-world cultivation instead of chasing fads. Now, some might argue, that single male pollination could theoretically limit genetic diversity down the road, but Wy'east seems to balance that really skillfully, meticulously selecting parent stock, focusing on deep integrity within their chosen lines. And this careful approach, it's exactly what guarantees that depth, durability, and designer gas for growers. Designer gas, that's that premium, complex, potent fuel aroma plus flavor profile everyone wants. Delivering those undeniable results, that's why they've earned that low-key, high-heat reputation. They deliver the goods without needing to shout about it constantly.
And the story keeps evolving. They keep pushing things. Let's look at some recent innovations and how they maintain that unique brand vibe. Wy'east Farms keeps dropping exciting new stuff like gyros, that's Han Solo burger, crossed with their key player, Cold Snap. Then there's Wolf's Tooth Dog Walker OG meets Cold Snap, and Grape Dripper, Grape Spritzer plus Cold Snap. These recent releases, they clearly show Wy'east evolving strategically, moving into even more complex funk, fuel, and fruit-forward work. But always keeping that signature quality, that genetic integrity. And what's really remarkable, kind of the cornerstone of their brand identity, is that low-key high-heat thing. Our source points out they rarely post online, actively avoiding the social media noise machine. Yet, despite being quiet, their genetics hit menus nationwide. They're sought out. Growers who know what's up want that depth, durability, and designer gas without the noise, without needing constant online hype. It's a real paradox in today's world, isn't it? Where so many brands feel like they have to yell to be noticed. And it's not just genetics anymore either. They've subtly branched out. Little Gear and Threads merch drops on WyeastSupplyCo.com. Things like clean logo hats, limited run tees, functional farmware, all representing that Oregon craft with quiet flex, that understated confidence in their quality.
Yeah, what fascinates me there is their ability to keep evolving the genetics, bringing out these innovative new crosses while staying absolutely true to those core values. Quality, purity, intention. This constant innovation, coupled with that really effective, almost counterintuitive low-key marketing, it just demonstrates a powerful organic growth model and kind of teaches us that in a crowded, often loud market, authenticity and just consistent, undeniable quality, those often become your best marketing tools. Their reputation, built on solid genetics, word of mouth among the best cultivators, it really precedes them. And that's something, no amount of ad money can actually buy. It's proof that sometimes less noise really does make more impact.
So after digging through all this, what does it all mean for you? Well, I think it shows Wy'east Farms really stands out by putting craft first. In every way. They're clearly playing a big role in keeping Oregon's genetic scene sharp, intentionally mixing that classic funk with modern mint, fuel, fruit notes, always in these small, potent drops, and they consciously avoid that trap the industry sometimes falls into, what the source called recycled Z and renamed gelato. Just slightly tweaked versions of overused genetics, lacking real innovation. So this deep dive into Wy'east, it's giving you a shortcut, really, a way to be well-informed about a specific, quality-driven approach that's making waves just by focusing on what actually matters. Great genetics at work.
And this whole discussion, it leads me to maybe one final provocative thought for you, our listener. Thinking beyond just cannabis, what does craft truly mean in any industry or maybe any project you're involved with? And how can that kind of focused intention, whether it's Wy'east's intense single male pollination thing or their no hype marketing, how can that create real lasting value, a value that genuinely cuts through all the noise we're constantly surrounded by? Maybe consider the power of that quiet, quality-driven approach, not just in the things you buy, but maybe even in your own work, your own creative efforts.